Welcome to If Your Therapist Knew, where research meets relationship, a podcast exploring the relational foundations of psychotherapy through the lenses of attachment theory, trauma-informed care, person-centered psychology, and psychotherapy research. My hope is to bridge the gap between clinical language and lived reality, to explore not only what therapy is supposed to do, but how healing actually happens between two people in a room. I'll explore the often unspoken aspects of the client experience that shape whether therapy feels safe, connecting, and truly healing. When most people think about safety in relationships, they think about words. They think about reassurance, kindness, honesty, or good communication. But the deeper truth emerging from interpersonal neurobiology and attachment research is that safety is not primarily something we think about. It's something our nervous system detects. Long before we consciously decide whether someone feels trustworthy, our body has already begun responding. Our shoulders tighten or soften, our breathing changes, our stomach drops, our chest loosens, we lean in or we subtly pull away. And for many therapy clients, especially clients with trauma histories, attachment wounds, chronic shame, or neurodivergence, this nervous system detection of safety is happening constantly beneath awareness. As counseling students and therapists, we are often trained to focus on interventions, techniques, treatment plans, cognitive reframing, theoretical orientations, and clinical language. But over and over again, the research points us back to something more foundational. The relationship itself is not just part of healing. The relationship is the healing environment. Researchers like Stephen Porges, Alan Shore, and Daniel Siegel are helping explain why. Because healing is not only cognitive, it is biological, it's embodied, and it's relational. One of the most important concepts here is something called neuroception, a term developed by Stephen Porges through polyvagal theory. Neuroception refers to the nervous system's unconscious surveillance system. It is constantly scanning the environment and other people for cues of safety, danger, or threat. And importantly, this happens before conscious thought. A client may consciously tell themselves, "This therapist seems nice," while their body simultaneously remains braced for impact. Or someone may walk into a room, hear a certain tone of voice, notice a particular facial expression, and instantly feel themselves relax without fully understanding why. That is neuroception. And once you understand this concept, so many therapy experiences suddenly make sense. Why some clients intellectually understand that therapy is safe, but still cannot emotionally settle. Why some therapists feel deeply regulating to be around, even when they say very little. Why clients sometimes leave sessions calmer without being able to identify exactly what shifted. The nervous system is constantly asking one primary question: am I safe enough to stay connected right now? Polyvagal theory proposes that our autonomic nervous system moves through different physiological states depending on the answer to that question. When safety is detected, we move into what Porges calls a ventral vagal state. This is a state associated with social engagement and connection. In this state, the body can rest, learn, reflect, play, connect, and process emotion. This is the physiological state most conducive to therapy. Clients in this state can think more clearly. They can tolerate emotional complexity. They can remain present while discussing difficult material. But when the nervous system detects danger, the body shifts automatically, sometimes into sympathetic activation, which is fight or flight. The heart rate increases, muscles tense, breathing changes, attention narrows. The body prepares for defense. And if the nervous system perceives the threat as overwhelming or inescapable, some people move further into dorsal vagal shutdown, which is collapse, numbness, dissociation, emotional disconnection, exhaustion, or immobilization. This is one reason trauma work can become so difficult. Clients are often trying to process painful experiences while their nervous system simultaneously believes they are still in danger. And this is where the therapeutic relationship becomes profoundly important because healing does not happen through insight alone. Regulation precedes reflection. When we think about communication, we often think about words, what someone said, how they explain themselves, whether the message sounded clear or articulate. But research on human communication suggests that words are only a small part of what people actually respond to. Many experts estimate that the vast majority of human communication is nonverbal. One of the most widely cited breakdowns proposes that communication is approximately 7% verbal, 38% vocal tone, and 55% body language. In other words, people are constantly interpreting much more than language alone. We are reading facial expression, posture, eye contact, timing, movement, tension, energy, and vocal tone, often automatically and outside conscious awareness. And this happens incredibly quickly. Long before someone consciously decides whether another person feels trustworthy, approachable, confident, warm, or emotionally safe, the nervous system has already begun forming impressions based on nonverbal cues. This is because human beings do not communicate only cognitively. The body is constantly gathering information from the people around us. Are they calm, tense, present, distracted, warm, guarded, engaged, unsafe? And often these impressions shape interactions more powerfully than the actual words being spoken. This helps explain why someone can technically say all the right things while still feeling emotionally distant or difficult to trust. And why sometimes another person can make us feel understood or comfortable before they have even said very much at all. Because communication is never just about information, it's also about presence. We often assume healing occurs because a therapist gives good interpretations or asks insightful questions. And certainly those things matter. But much of healing appears to occur through something far less visible: the experience of being emotionally held by another regulated human nervous system. Alan Shore describes this as right brain to right brain communication. The right hemisphere of the brain is heavily involved in emotion, attachment, facial recognition, tone of voice, and relational attunement. And importantly, much of this communication is nonverbal. This means therapy is never only occurring through words. A client's nervous system is also reading the therapist's eyes, facial tension, breathing, voice, timing, posture, energy, and responsiveness. Sometimes therapy clients can feel profoundly understood before a therapist has even offered a single interpretation. And sometimes clients feel unsafe even when the therapist says all the correct things. Because the nervous system does not primarily organize around language. It organizes around embodied signals. This helps explain why vocal prosody matters so much. Prosody refers to the rhythm, tone, warmth, and melodic quality of the human voice. Because of the vagal nerve's biology, you cannot just perform safety. When a therapist is truly grounded, they aren't just acting nice. Their biology is sending a reliable, high-speed message of security that the client's body recognizes as truth. A warm, calm, responsive voice can function as a biological cue of safety. A rushed, flat, monotone, distracted, or tense voice may unintentionally signal danger or disconnection. This does not mean therapists must perform warmth or become artificially soothing. Clients are extraordinarily sensitive to incongruence. If someone says, "I'm here with you," while their body communicates stress, emotional absence, or urgency, many clients will feel that mismatch immediately, especially clients with trauma histories, especially clients who learned early in life that words and emotional reality did not match. The nervous system is remarkably skilled at detecting relational inconsistency. This is where concepts like limbic resonance become incredibly important. The limbic system is deeply involved in emotion, attachment, memory, and threat detection. Limbic resonance refers to the way emotional states can become synchronized between people in close relational contact. Studies have even observed forms of physiological synchrony between people who feel emotionally connected. Breathing patterns can synchronize, heart rhythms can synchronize, emotional states can synchronize. This is part of why therapists sometimes physically feel the emotional atmosphere of a session in their own bodies. The therapist's body becomes an instrument of attunement, and this is also why therapist self-regulation matters so much. Not because therapists should be perfectly calm at all times, but because clients often unconsciously borrow the therapist's nervous system stability. In the therapy room, our breath, our tone of voice, and our micro-expressions are physically nudging each other's nervous systems into a shared rhythm, moving from isolation into a shared state where two people operate as a single connected unit. We have this incredible biology in our brains called mirror neurons, which allow us to simulate not just the physical actions of another person, but their very intentions and emotions. When a client's right brain catches those signals of safety from an attuned therapist, it sends a direct signal, a literal off switch, down to the amygdala. This physically puts the brakes on cortisol and adrenaline so that the client can finally feel safe enough to explore their internal world. Daniel Siegel often uses the phrase feeling felt, and that phrase captures something many therapy clients struggle to describe. There is a massive difference between someone intellectually understanding your story and someone emotionally resonating with your experience. Clients can feel that difference. Feeling felt involves emotional presence. It involves the therapist accurately tracking the client's internal state with enough sensitivity that the client begins experiencing themselves as understandable rather than defective. And over time, repeated experiences of attunement begin reshaping internal working models, the deeply ingrained expectations people carry about relationships. Clients who once expected abandonment or rejection may slowly begin expecting responsiveness. Clients who expected criticism may slowly begin expecting compassion. Clients who expected emotional isolation may slowly begin experiencing connection as survivable. This is one reason co-regulation is such a powerful concept. Co-regulation refers to the process through which one nervous system helps stabilize another. We see this naturally between caregivers and infants. A distressed baby cannot fully regulate independently. The caregiver's facial expression, touch, voice, rhythm, and presence help organize the child's developing nervous system. But adults still need co-regulation too. We often imagine maturity as complete emotional independence, but neuroscience increasingly suggests human beings are biologically designed for relational regulation throughout the lifespan. Our nervous systems affect one another constantly. You can probably think of people whose presence immediately calms you, and you can probably think of people who make your body tense before they even speak. That is not weakness, that is neurobiology. A grounded therapist can become what attachment researchers call a secure base. This concept comes from the work of John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. A secure base is a relationship that allows someone to explore difficult emotional territory while remaining connected to safety. And that distinction matters deeply. Safety does not mean the absence of pain. Therapy is often painful. Growth and grief are painful. Trauma processing and attachment work are painful. But relational safety allows pain to become tolerable rather than overwhelming. Safety is not about avoiding emotional difficulty. Safety is what allows emotional difficulty to be survived without psychological disorganization. A securely attached therapeutic relationship creates enough stability for clients to move toward experiences they previously had to avoid. And when clients become overwhelmed, the therapist helps them return to regulation without shame. This process becomes especially important when we understand shame neurobiologically. Shame is not simply a negative thought about the self. For many people, shame is a full body collapse state. The nervous system shuts down connection. And for clients with attachment trauma, shame often developed through repeated experiences of misattunement, not feeling seen, understood, emotionally protected, or emotionally held, which means healing shame often requires more than cognitive reframing. It requires a new relational experience. Many clients are not simply asking, "Will you help me?" At a much deeper level, the nervous system is asking, "Will I still exist in your mind when I am distressed? Will you stay emotionally connected to me? Will I still matter if I'm dysregulated? Will you move toward me or away from me?" This is why rupture and repair are so important in therapy. A strong therapeutic relationship is not one with no ruptures. That does not exist. Real relationships involve misunderstandings, missed attunement, emotional disconnection, and moments where clients feel unseen. But what predicts healing is often the repair. Can the therapist notice the rupture? Can they stay regulated? Can they remain non-defensive? Can they move toward the client with curiosity and accountability? Because when repair occurs successfully, the nervous system learns something new. Disconnection can be repaired, and that can be profoundly corrective for clients whose early relationships taught them otherwise. Over time, these repeated relational experiences gradually become internalized. What once required another person's nervous system slowly becomes something the client can begin offering themselves. This is sometimes called transmuting internalization, the process through which external regulation gradually becomes internal self-regulation. And honestly, I think this changes how many of us understand what therapy actually is. Therapy is not simply advice, insight, or coping skills. At its deepest level, therapy may be one human nervous system helping another nervous system experience enough safety to reorganize itself, not through force or perfection or performance, but through attunement, presence, consistency, repair, and embodied relational safety. And maybe that is why certain therapeutic moments stay with people forever. Not because the therapist said something brilliant, but because for one moment, the client's nervous system experienced, "I am safe here. I don't have to brace. I don't have to disappear. I can remain connected while fully being myself." And for many people, that experience is not small, it's revolutionary. Thank you for joining me for this exploration of where research meets relationship.